Be the Talk, episode 187, featuring Jim Cathcart. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Jim Cathcart. Jim, are you ready to talk?
Are you kidding? I'm live. Be the talk, my man.
Jim Cathcart is a success evangelist, a Hall of Fame professional speaker, an author of 18 books, sales and marketing Hall of Famer, strategic advisor, and executive coach, mountain trail runner, semi-pro guitarist and singer, and a lifetime motorcyclist. Jim Cathcart, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to this, Nathan.
Yeah, this is going to rock. Your talk is called How to Believe in Yourself. It has garnered, as of last we checked, over 1.3 million views. And it's as simple as starting with the seed of an acorn. You break that down for us. Jim, Please take us behind the talk.
Absolutely. Well, that was a TED Talk that I was invited to give because I participated in a group discussion at a national speakers convention. And the woman who was chairing the upcoming TED event said, "Hey, I like the way you think. Would you be one of my presenters?" So I went to Florida, Delray Beach, and I was one of 16 presenters. And I'd said, I'm going to speak on how to believe in yourself. Everyone says you should. Almost nobody tells you how to do it. And she said, "Okay, you got 10 minutes. I said, "Gulp." So I did a lot of preparation, got a woman named Haley Foster to do some coaching with me. Even after 3,100 professional speeches, I still enjoy coaching. Mm-hmm. And she helped me whittle it down, and I got it to 8.5 minutes. And sure enough, it's gone viral. And honestly, I feel like I did about a 7 out of 10 on the performance of the talk. But evidently the title and the length and the timing of its appearance, it was just right.
Yeah, well, very actionable. I think Talk Universe, did you catch what Jim just said about a minute ago? He's given well over 3,000 professional talks, and he's still hiring a coach. I got to halt right there. I'm putting the brakes on it. Jim, why does somebody like you've got over a million views, why are you still hiring coaches?
Well, it's kind of the same reason that the top golfers and the top other performers get coaches and the top singers and performers have voice coaches. My point of view is all based in only one person's experience, mine. So if I have someone else who says, "That's good, and I get where you're headed with that, but it's a little confusing and hard to follow," then that helps me go back and rethink the way I'm messaging it. Or if they say, "Hey, when you say this, and you glance away, it kind of kills your credibility. Look back at the audience or the camera." And, little nuances like that you maybe forget about over the years, they remind you of. And it's not like you're going to find some profound insight that you think, "Oh my gosh, I never even considered that." But they'll say, "Hey, stand up straighter or suck in your gut, for heaven's sakes. You're older now."
Well, it's a very actionable talk. It's called How to Believe in Yourself. I took a couple of notes. One of the top tips that you gave that I'm a big believer in. How would the person I'd like to become do what I'm about to do? And Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind, but the way that you phrase it is even more actionable because you're acting as if, and you're doing things at this point in time with almost the benefit of a mental time machine, and you're ratcheting it up in such a way that you're going to get faster results. What are some other things in the talk?
Well, that one's worth drilling down a little bit.
Oh, it did. So let's camp out there.
How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? I call that the daily question. And people say to me, "Well, then I think of someone I'd like to be." And I think, no. Think of you in the future. The more evolved you, the more enlightened, the more mature, the more savvy, the more informed you. How would that version of you do today's work? Because if you do today's work like today's you, then you remain today's you. In other words, acorns that think like acorns never become oaks. So think like the oak you're going to be, and then the acorn evolves. I had a guy in my audience years ago, young 19-year-old kid, and he took that idea to heart. And he said, I want to be the international sales leader of my company. So everything he did from that day forward, he said, how would the international sales leader version of me do this? He upgraded his appearance, his record keeping, his day-to-day practices, his customer treatment. And at the end of the year, won a Corvette automobile as the international sales leader. Today, 30 years later, he is a multimillionaire, a Google licensee, and he's built and sold 2 or 3 different businesses for millions of dollars. Wow. One question, he transformed his life.
See, what I love, Talk Universe, about what Jim's explaining to us right now. It's not, there's one of my favorite books has a verse in it that says, that God is no respecter of persons. And the dream is really no respecter of persons. And that has a good side and a not so good side. The not so good side is if you just kind of do your thing the way that you always do it, you're going to continue to get what you always got, Talk Universe, and so will I, and so will Jim. But if you start and act as if, and you ask that question, and you're willing to upgrade everything, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you speak, the diction,
the way you handle
things.
Tough situations, and the way you react to problems.
Yeah.
The way you treat people who don't have power.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen that to be true all day long. Man, powerful
and it's
stuff.
not a fake it till you make it mentality either. Fake it till you make it says put on an act and be something you're not. No, I'm saying be a better version of you.
And that's the empowering thing, because those trite cliches, it's kind of an act, and that's kind of embedded in the phrase. But I think it's so empowering, Jim, what you're saying, because you're recognizing the dignity that we all have to be really the best in the world, to be world-class people at whatever we're doing, including, in my case, hosting a 7-day-a-week podcast. That's exactly what I'm doing.
And we are the only version of us that's ever existed in the history of time. So, obviously we were created for some purpose, because we've got all this potential in us to do good in so many ways, from, saying something nice to somebody, smiling at a person who's depressed, opening a door for someone, solving a problem, curing cancer, whatever, we've all got our gifts and our abilities to make the world a better place. And when we don't, we cheat the rest of the world out of the contribution we could have made. And it doesn't require that we be, have a PhD and be this highly evolved philosophical creature, but it does require that you become more self-aware, meaning every day you spend some time reflecting on what you did, what happened, what you did, how your reaction unfolded, and whether it made it better or not, so that every day you're learning from your own experience.
Now, I'm going to drive it home, because I know that, Jim, you've just come back from a major tour in China. So what was, with all of these things in mind that we're talking about contextually, what is the number one life lesson that you learned from this recent tour that's going to help Jim Cathcart become a better version of himself?
Well, they treat me like a god over there, and I mean, it's almost it's disturbing how they revere me, and I'm not used to that. I've been treated well. I've been a VIP before, but good heavens, wow. So I've had to learn to accept that treatment, but be gracious. A lot of people, they get that kind of treatment. They just sort of thinking, dude, I deserve this, right? and then they become all full of themselves, and you see the rock star syndrome, see movie stars, rock stars, and they think that they deserve all that. Well, no, I don't deserve all that. But man, am I grateful to get it. So I try to honor them as they honor me, and I try to show my gratitude in ways that are appropriate without killing the spirit of the moment. And also something that impressed me on this trip, on all of my trips over there, has been their eagerness to learn. Oh my word. They are voracious students of success. There are 400 million millennials in China. There's 85 million in the US. 400 million, that's the entire population of the US and Canada combined. That's how many millennials they have. And every one of them is eager to learn English, eager to learn how to succeed, eager to transcend the limited world of all the past generations and make a difference in the world.
Wow. Well, we've been talking with Jim Cathcart, rock star, literal rock star, back from his victory lap in China. Talk Universe, it's hard to do what he said. It hasn't quite happened to me yet, but I've been, some of my mentors have been kind of lionized in a similar way that Jim has been talking about. It's a very hard, balance to honor the desire of the people to celebrate really themselves and what they see in you that they want to embrace and grow in themselves without killing it or without, on the other hand, becoming kind of a giant shout text jerk in the middle of it. So it's harder than you think. I've seen it done, and I really appreciate Jim's sentiments. We're going to be back with Jim in just a moment for the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back. It's time for the Blitz Round with Jim Cathcart. I'm about to ask Jim a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent branded talk. Are you ready, Jim?
Go for it.
All right. Well, first off, and I think you answered this already, but were you selected or did you apply to speak?
I was selected, and since then I've applied twice to speak at other TED Talks and have not been selected, despite having over 1 million views. So, it's kind of lightning in a bottle when you do get it.
I guess it keeps us humble when we keep applying, for sure. Are you, Jim, a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I'm an improviser. I prepare, but I don't memorize what I'm going to say.
So when you walk out on the stage, Jim, do you I know you've given 3,000 plus professional talks. For this talk, did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I had nerves because of the time frame. They had originally told me I had 15 minutes, and then they told me it was going to be 6. And I said, oh, no, wait. And they said, okay, we'll give you 10. And I had prepared for like 12, so... yeah, I was nervous.
Well, that would put the fear of God in anybody. They knocked your time down by 2/3, and then they conceded and gave you, so you had about 2/3 of the original time you prepped for. All right.
And because of that, I cut a little bit out, which lost some of the spontaneity that would have been there. But it came in at 8.5 minutes, and that's okay.
Oh, my word. Okay. Well, part of the reason we do this is Talk Universe is listening, and there are future and current organizers who are listening to this, and there are future organizers. There are people that are speakers, and and they've done this, or they haven't even spoke yet. But wherever you are, just be aware of this anomaly that we've just heard. Don't do that to your speakers. I think that's Jim's advice and my advice, for all of you. And if you want to hear, the perspective of an organizer, there are several organizers that I've interviewed, for this podcast. Next, question. What's a tip, technique, or a tool that helped you, Jim?
Memorize your opening line and your closing line, and let the part in between be a little organic.
Here's the cut for time question. And obviously, this was, there are a few bleed over, questions. You just mentioned that your time was cut right off the bat. So what was the most painful part of your talk that had to get, cut out? You mentioned a few tips that had to be, sliced out to make time.
For me, the most painful was cutting out the playfulness. I'm a playful presenter with a serious message. So I like to interact with the audience and kind of, poke them and get a response from them. And I didn't feel I had the freedom to do that. So it diminished the quality of that performance, I think.
Duly noted, for sure. And again, besides having 2/3 of the time cut, what was another unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
I found that the other presenters were more nervous than I was. And so being next in line, usually wouldn't be a problem, but I felt an urgency, like the people behind me were almost pushing and the people in front of me were hoping to get through it without a mistake because they weren't professional speakers and I am.
We call that I think the piano recital effect.
Great analogy.
Right? Yeah. I mean, those of you, Be the Talk, Talk Universe, you can't see this if you're listening right now, but is that a Les Paul guitar behind you? What do you have there?
Taylor T5.
Oh, a Taylor T5.
Wonderful.
Yeah. He's got this, I'm talking with Jim right now. He's got these gorgeous guitars right behind him. So I was a pianist and it was like, I wanted to be number one. I was a pretty good one. I wanted to be number one, but they always put me last. And there was always like 40 kids before me. And so when Jim is talking about, you feel that energy in the room and you feel it building and there's fewer and fewer. That's a thing. It's definitely
kind of like when it's your turn to be the next bungee jumper.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, last question, Jim, what would you say is the biggest challenge of this particular talk for you?
Biggest challenge was not doing my quote usual thing, close quote. I was encouraged to reveal something deeper within me, to really focus on something that I felt strongly about. And of course, I feel strongly about what I usually talk about. But this required some rethinking. And I wasn't able to just slip into some of my usual stories and proven material that I knew would kill.
We've been enjoying the Blitz round with Jim Cathcart, who is just fresh on his heels of his China tour, and he's back. His talk is called How to Believe in Yourself. You can type that into YouTube and be able to check it out, or you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We'll have a clickable link, as well as we want you to connect with Jim because he's making a huge impact in the world. You'll have a link to his website, which is Cathcart.com. Great. That's boss. Right. Domain name, last name, domain name, Cathcart.com. We're going to be back with Jim Cathcart in just a moment for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with the final word of advice to Talk Universe from Jim Cathcart. What is it, Jim?
It is to ask yourself every day, what happened? How do I feel about it? How did it turn out? And how would the person I'd like to be have handled that differently? Without reflection, there's no true learning.
Jim Cathcart, thank you so much for carving out your valuable time and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.